Alright everyone, welcome back. On July 5th, the Division 2 released its roadmap for Year 4, which showed when we should expect Season 10 and 11, and what those seasons would entail. Season 11 looks really promising with another new game mode coming. Yannick confirming the development on this mode has already begun as well. You may have watched the video where I covered all of this, but one thing I completely overlooked when reading the article that came with it, the what's ahead for the Division piece, was right towards the end. It talks about a Year 5. So let's take a look at what it says. Drop a like and subscribe to stay updated with all my videos. Let's get into it. The article reads, the development of Year 4 is led by a group of project veterans at Ubisoft Massive with the support of a talented group of developers at Ubisoft Bucharest, Ubisoft Toronto and Ubisoft Shanghai. Without the support from these teams, the production of new content wouldn't be possible. We are looking forward to continuing this collaboration with Year 5 of the Division 2. Now, Yannick actually took to Twitter reiterating the Year 5 announcement, which means we've got at least the last 2 seasons of this year's worth of content, and then we've got another year's worth of content on top of that, which is actually massive news when you consider that at the end of 2020, the Division was pretty much dead and buried. Ubisoft had pulled all its resources, and Massive were moving on to bigger fish, and have still moved on to bigger fish. They're still developing Avatar and they're still developing Star Wars. Massive state, this was because of us as players that basically forced Ubisoft's hand and basically made them decide to carry on investing in the franchise. And that's actually been kind of hard to believe when you consider the argument that the Division is a dead game. I think the announcement of a Year 5 shows just how successful Season 9 has been. I've always been told that the success of this year's worth of content will determine if we get another year's. I did not expect it to be so soon, and that to me says that Season 9 TU15 has been a revelation. So what will Year 5 have in store for us? Well, that's something that I really want to talk about in today's video. It's obviously very early days, but I actually think there's a few things that I think we should definitely get, and a few things that I would love to see. So let's go over the list that I have here. A new DLC or expansion. Now, this has previously been shot down by the developers, but this was prior to any announcement of development beyond just this 1 year of content. With another year on top of that, I don't think it's out of the question that Massive targets some kind of DLC or expansion rather than just repeating the seasonal formula of this year. Of course, a lot of that is going to come down to actually Ubisoft and whether they want to put all the resources into that, but I think Massive might have a big part to say in all of that as well. Now, do I think this is likely to happen? No, I don't. The reason being is that because we know the team working on the game at the moment is a small one. It's getting bigger, it is growing. There's actually 3 jobs open at the moment. It's definitely getting bigger, but it's still a small team. It's very possible that a Division 3 is actually being prepared for development, especially when you consider that Pally Hofstein made hint to this in a tweet that I covered last week. And so the seasonal format is kind of just there to keep us playing until that happens. If we by some miracle do get some kind of expansion, then I'm not expecting it to be on the same scale as Warlords of New York. As I said before, it's a small team now, and I believe the team that worked on Warlords of New York was far bigger than the one that we have. I am going to keep my fingers crossed for this one, as I really think that some kind of expansion would land really, really well. If you think an expansion would be a bad idea, and you don't agree with me, and you'd prefer for Massive to continue with the seasonal format, or perhaps, I don't know, you've got an alternative suggestion, leave it in the comments down below. So moving on, and another thing that I think Massive might introduce in Year 5 is new specializations. At this stage, we don't quite know when the specialization revamp will be coming. There are suggestions that TU16 and Season 10 will be that date, but the roadmap did not include the revamp as one of its highlighted features, and Massive have said that's because they don't want to commit to a certain date with this, so who knows when that will happen. I do hope that it comes sooner rather than later. However, you know, if they need as much time as they need to make sure it is a good update, a good revamp, then I'm all for that. Now, this revamp is meant to make specializations and their trees more viable and more impactful in the game. So I don't think it's a stretch to imagine some new specializations coming with Year 5. I believe there are plenty of new weapons Massive could come up with here, and this is something they are planning. I'd imagine maybe one new specialization per season for year 5. Probably looking at about 3 seasons, so 3 new specializations. I do think this all is dependent on how well the revamp is received. So, like I said, if Massive need to take longer than what they'd planned in order to make sure this is received well, then I'm absolutely for that. But if they can make specialization weapons, you know, an important feature of our players' arsenal, some of that is just not there at the moment. I think we definitely could see a few more being added with year 5. I think that's a good way of them adding content in the game. But as I said, it needs to be when those feature is actually something that we're going to use, because specializations right now are just really bad. Let's hope the revamp works. Okay, so this next one I'm pretty certain about. We're going to get some new game modes in year 5. We know that Massive are planning a new game mode with Season 11 that was included on the roadmap. This is due to release in early December of this year, although what I would say is when it comes to a roadmap, take it with a pinch of salt when it comes to dates, because quite often this stuff is delayed. You just never know what's going to happen in development. Just like the Countdown game mode, I'm expecting this mode to be built mainly by Ubisoft Bucharest, and I'm expecting it to have some kind of premise where it's, you know, for the casual audience, it's fast-paced, that sort of stuff. I think Countdown is a mode that's showed how well that can work. They are joined, Ubisoft Bucharest, they are joined by Toronto and Shanghai going into year 5, so I think it's pretty safe to assume that we're going to get at least one more game mode with year 5, quite possibly 2. I know we're having 2 with this year's, but you got to remember that development for this year started last year, early last year, so they've had quite a lot longer. They're not going to get as much time for year 5, I'd imagine. Without knowing exactly what we're going to get with this Season 11 mode, I can't really speculate on what year 5 might bring. But if I had to, you know, if I had the power to kind of add a mode to the game right now, I'm going to be selfish here. I'm going to go with what I want. And I'm always going to want a survival type game mode to return. And I think the game has all the elements to achieve this. Whilst we don't have the snow, we do have the sandstorms that really restrict your vision and could easily be used to give us that survival atmosphere. The only thing that kind of makes me think we won't get something like that is the fact that we're getting Heartlands, which is kind of meant to be this survival type game, but it is completely separate to the Division 2's universe, in the sense it's a completely separate game by Redstorm, so I don't know if it has any bearing whatsoever. Yannick has actually never ruled out the possibility of this mode returning, previously saying that it would have to come back bigger and better than ever, so it's still very much on the table. I imagine it's pretty far down the table, if you can even see it, but it is there. So this is what I would love to see. I suspect many of you won't agree and probably would prefer something else, but if I was to make a poll about survival coming back, I guarantee you 80-90% of you would be happy to have some kind of new survival game mode added to the Division 2. I think it's definitely up there with one of the most requested game modes. So if they're going to bring one back, if they're going to make a new game mode, then survival to me seems like the best bet. Okay, so lastly, a new faction. The Division Mobile recently revealed its enemy faction called the Freemen, and today they included some really cool artwork showcasing this enemy faction. And one thing the Division 2 needs, I feel, is a new faction. And what better time than year 5? And when we've been fighting Black Tusks and all, True Sons and all that sort of stuff for the last 4 years. I don't know exactly how Massive would explain a new faction into the lore. Maybe they have to retcon some previous stuff. I don't know. But for the purpose of making PvE feel new and fresh and more vibrant, instead of maybe adding some new game modes, which I think they need anyway, but on top of that, I do feel like we need a new faction to fight against. I think that would really kind of refresh the Division 2, and what better opportunity than year 5? These are the 4 main things that I think we could see with year 5. Game modes are almost a certainty at this stage, with Countdown proving just how popular they are. I mean, they were very popular in the Division 1. Massive decided to go a different direction with the Division 2, but I think most people would agree that game modes are something that the Division 2 has really lacked. A DLC or expansion of some kind is probably, I would say, the least likely, but something, again, I would love to see. So long as the resources and development time required wouldn't mean the following content, you know, is affected. I wouldn't want it to affect the seasons and the rest of the stuff. I think we can almost guarantee that seasons will return, along with new gear, weapons, exotics, all of that sort of usual stuff that seasons bring, which is why I didn't talk about it in this video. I'm just happy, I'll be honest guys, I'm just happy that Season 9 and TU15 did so well that Ubisoft have greenlit a year 5, as this was something I've never actually envisaged would ever going to happen at the end of 2020. When we learned that they'd basically given up on the Division 2 but that they were starting again a little bit, I never imagined we'd get 2 years worth of extra content. So with the mobile announcement, the Division mobile announcement recently, the Division Heartland soon to be on the market as well, the future does actually look bright for this franchise for a change. Thanks for watching. If you don't want to miss any of my future uploads, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Until the next one, Epic out.